Hello class, it's Kate here along with Leena and Andy Maloney to talk to you guys about Native Americans. To start, there is a large clash of cultures, mainly between the white settlers and the native groups, as well as between native and native groups. This dispute was because of the large heightened westward movement. It increased the internal clash between native groups. The forced migration led to very many limited resources, such as bison and land. Not only did the forced migration lead to the limited resources, but as well as an evolution or cultural change of the native groups. Many native groups adopted horseback riding to hunt and increased their hunting skills drastically. They became more aggressive than ever before. For example, the Cheyenne and Sioux tribes transformed themselves from crop-growing villagers to nomadic traders and efficient hunters. The whites and the natives began to clash again because white men were killing bison extremely rapidly. By 1885, fewer than 1,000 were left after the bison had been slaughtered for their tongues, hides, or just for amusement by the white men. Additionally, the ignorance of the white settlers and soldiers led to a falsified interpretation of Native American culture and government, which led to more, of course, clash of cultures. For example, the white settlers kind of made up the terms chiefs and tribes and gave them to the native groups, when in reality there wasn't a strictly enforced hierarchy system which would call for the name chief. It was more of a family that followed their own system. Additionally, their ignorance is obvious when the white settlers continued to spread their diseases, such as chlorea, typhoid, and smallpox. This led to a very large dip in the Native American population.
In the late 1800s, the Native American population greatly decreased due to the white settlers' increasing desire to gain control. Effects of this desire included multiple battles and massacres that stemmed from white impediments on Indian culture and government. Of these battles included Sand Creek, Colorado, which was when Colonel J.M. Chivington's militia killed 400 innocent Indians. Killings were done by torturing, such as scalping and shooting begging women and children. Another effect of the mentality of white superiority was the Battle of Little Bighorn and Battle of Wounded Knee. The Battle of Little Bighorn resulted from Colonel George Armstrong Custer's desire to kick the Sioux Indians off their land because he believed he found gold on the land. Although the Indians were less equipped to fight in comparison to the white army, this was a rare victory for them. The brutality of Custer's warfare highly influenced fighting tactics of the Indians. However, their victory was short-lived as the U.S. Army sought to avenge Custer's subsequent humiliation by the Indians. The Battle of Wounded Knee was a tragic occurrence for the Indians and showcased the white man's lack of morals. In this battle, the Sioux Indians were fired upon with machine guns on December 29, 1890, and 200 of them were killed. This occurred because the white settlers disapproved of native traditions, including their ghost dance performed in order to appeal to the gods to destroy the white man and bring back their land. Along with military control over the Indians, the white settlers used trains to supply their newly forming population on Indian land. This equipped the average white man and armies on Indian reservations with necessities of living and thriving. Furthermore, diseases that the white man brought wiped out Indian populations because they were not immune to them. The white people also forced the natives off their land. For example, the Nez Perce Indians were sent to a dusty reservation in Kansas. The government invading the culture and civilization of the native people introduced a reservation system based on corrupt ways of manipulating native people. In this system, the Indians were dishonestly promised to be left alone if they surrendered their land. Corrupt leaders of this system embezzled money from the tribes and forced large populations of Indians onto insufficient plots of land. Here you can see a picture of a train, one like one of those used in the late 1800s to bring supplies to the white settlers on the Indian land. Here's a depiction of a Native American dying due to a disease brought by the white man, and the Native American standing appealing to the god to heal him. This is a map of the reservation system in the United States in 1890. As you can see, while the Indians used to occupy the majority of the western land, they were forced onto to these tiny and insufficient plots of land.
The feelings regarding treatment of Native Americans began to change, however, oppression was still in practice. One act passed was the Dawes Severalty Act of 1887, and this act dissolved many tribes as legal entities, wiped out tribal ownership of land, and set up individual Indian families with 160 free acres. If the Indians behaved like, quote, good white settlers, they would get full title to their holdings as well as citizenship. And this remained the basis of government's official Indian policy until the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934. Because of this act, Native Americans lost 50% of the 156 acres of land they had just 2 decades earlier. Although this act promised land to the natives, the system was corrupt and did not resemble the promises of reconciliation and reimbursement. Other groups also continued to oppress, specifically Christian reformers, who had no respect for Indian tribes and tried to assimilate them into white society. But by the 1880s, the nation began to realize the horrors it had committed towards the Indians. These humanitarians did not agree with the treatment of natives and spoke out. One in particular is Helen Hunt Jackson, a distinguished author that published A Century of Dishonor in 1881, which told the record of government ruthlessness in dealings with Indians, and Ramona in 1884, which told of injustice to the California Indians specifically. In conclusion, the treatment of natives continued to be horrible. However, many Americans finally realized the truth and wanted change.